Hi, this is Rick Spencer, and part of our Sociology of Media Voices series, Media Bites, we have the pleasure today of speaking to Dr. Jay Thompson. They are a lecturer of the Professional Communication in the School of Media and Communication, RMIT University. His research explores ways of cultivating ethical online communication in the era of disinformation and digital hostility. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much for having me here. So I will be speaking with TASA regarding my current research project, which asks the question, how can online community managers and journalists be equipped to cultivate ethical online communication about disinformation? What I want to do today is just talk about a little about my research trajectory. This will hopefully give your viewers some idea of how I became involved in this topic and why I feel this is of such profound importance. So, my academic research has predominantly focused on media controversies, and I've been particularly fascinated these last 17 years with the ways in which dissenting opinions on a given issue are debated in public sphere fora. The incivility and the sense of talking past one another that can characterize these debates, and the factors, technological, rhetorical, ideological, that have in many ways shaped this incivility. To quote a famous line from the 1967 film Cool Hand Luke, which later made its way onto a Guns N' Roses album, what we've got here is a failure to communicate. And therein, I think, lies the great irony. In an era in which we as a society, as a world, where communication is easy across borders, in a rapid time frame, is easier than ever. What we're doing is talking at each other. We're talking past each other. We're talking about each other, but we're not talking to each other. So my earlier work, including my PhD, which I submitted in 2009, explored media controversies about gender and sexuality in the very different mediascape of the 1990s. Around 2018, I developed an intellectual and personal curiosity in digital hostility, the myriad forms it takes, how it reflects and perpetuates existing inequalities, and the ways in which it can be mitigated. During this time, I developed a strong interest in the dissemination of disinformation in online spaces, and that interest solidified during the early days of COVID-19 and the spread of misleading information regarding the novel coronavirus. I believe the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, not the band, calls it the pandemic of infodemic. The infodemic. We are living not just in a pandemic, but we're living in an infodemic. So where I see a lot of overlaps between digital disinformation and hostility. Disinformation can itself be a form of, or it can at least create fertile grounds for hostility. And to illustrate that point, we need look no further than the Capitol riots in Washington in January this year, brought about as they were by the fake news, for want of a better term, that Donald Trump had been unfairly denied presidency. And of course, what we saw is his supporters, creating all kinds of damage. Amongst those supporters, of course, there were supporters of other disinformation movements. We all recall the image of the young man, the shirtless man with the horns, holding the sign and saying, Q sent me. Of course, Q
Mm,
refers to QAnon, the
mm,
online conspiracy theory that is based on the premise that Donald Trump's in a secret battle against the cabal of small L liberal, elite, and vampiric, yeah, sexual predators who are
mm.
drinking children's blood. So this is the world we're living in. I want to emphasize to your viewers, and I'll do so at greater length in my presentation on the 2nd of July, that there is no silver bullet for disinformation. By the same token, nor is it an option, as it's sometimes been suggested to me, to not talk about it or to simply block or ban disinformation proponents. That sets about what Foucault might have called an incitement to discourse. Simply telling people not to talk about or simply blocking just makes it all the more interesting and all the more dangerous, I put it to you. So,
Interested, just quickly on that point, Jay. Oh, sorry, Dr. Jay Daniel. I was going to ask you, what about the notion of Twitter and Facebook taking the public stand of blocking someone who was at that time the president, of one of the
yeah,
biggest spaces in the
yeah,
world? Do you think that that had more of an impetus for Trump supporters and the other disenfranchised, disinformation sort of spaces that gave them more of a legitimacy to the conspiracy theories that they were trying to perpetuate?
that's a great question. Thank you for asking, Rick. Now, I assume there you're referring to the banning
Mhm.
of Donald Trump from those spaces. That banning was brought about because he was in the most powerful position in the world and was culpable of spreading all kinds of dangerous disinformation. I think, on one hand, a general community feeling that I noticed in some circles was that it was too little too late. The cat was out of the bag at that point. On the other hand, what I think it does is feed very much into Trump's narrative of him being, or his performance of the political outsider, the man who dares to speak the truth that the non elites, the forgotten people are thinking, and being held up as further proof that he is right and he's being unfairly denied a voice. So it very much plays into the Trump narrative. Absolutely. And that presents, I think, online moderators, social media companies with an incredibly challenging situation. On the one hand, while it may be too little too late, do we want to keep someone online on their platforms who has such a massive audience and can do such great damage as we saw in the Capitol riot? Is that what we want to do? On the other hand, do you want to simply send his networking or his voice underground, for example, where it's not like his followers are going to stop following him, that people are going to start see the light and see the error of their ways. So what do you do? This is a profound challenge, and it's a challenge that, relating to my research, online moderators in particular face every day of their working lives. So what I'm asking in my research is, how can journalists and online community managers cultivate online communication about disinformation that is inclusive of as many voices as possible, that is fact-based, and that at least mitigates harm. Harm may never be completely prevented or eradicated, but it can be reduced. The likelihood can be reduced.
Well, this is wonderful, and I'm really excited to hear more
Yeah.
of your lecture that we will be hearing from you very shortly. So, look, thank you so much for your time, and I know that we all really can't wait to hear more about your wonderful ideas, and really showcasing how certain voices can be heard amongst others. And so, thank you so much for your time today,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Jay.
One more thing, I do look forward to seeing many of you at my presentation. Come along, ask questions, make suggestions, and disagree with me. Please, if you want to disagree, do so. I want to make it a safe space for people who may feel otherwise to have a voice and to be heard as well. We'll have some fun.
Thank you.